The rectangle command is nothing more than 4 line segments and some relationships auto-created by SOLIDWORKS. There are several types of rectangles preloaded into the SOLIDWORKS tools, and we can use them, or we can create our own. Depending on the tool we use, the relationships are added differently. Let's take a look. I'm going to start over here on the top plane, click and start a new sketch, and we're going to come up here to the top of the screen, under the sketch toolbar, and we're going to come up here and grab the very first rectangle, which is the corner rectangle. To use this rectangle, we just go ahead and click on the origin or anywhere else on the screen, click once, and then drag the rectangle out to whatever size we'd like. And notice it gives us a couple of heads-up display size in X and Y. So we've got 2 by 4. So I want to drag this out to roughly about 4 inches in the X and roughly about 2 inches in the Y, and just click OK. Then I can come back, grab the Smart Dimension tool, dimension one of the legs, make it 4.0, and dimension the other leg 2.0 to create that rectangle. Notice everything turns black. It means it's fully defined. It knows exactly where it is, and it's tied to the origin, so it knows exactly where that is as well. Notice how this is created. It uses 2 horizontal lines and 2 vertical lines. Makes it really simple to create a rectangle, and does all that behind the scenes. Now we could create this exact same rectangle just using the regular line command and adding those relationships manually, but using the rectangle command really makes it a little faster to do that. Let's go ahead and delete this. So I'm going to click and drag over the rectangle and hit delete on my keyboard. Next, I'm going to use the center point rectangle. This one here, I'm going to start again on the origin, click and drag out the size we'd like. And notice this one gives us automatically 2 center lines going through the rectangle, and it ties it into the origin and makes those all midpoint. Makes it really handy to design something that's origin-centric. Again, let's go back and add a few dimensions. So I'm going to dimension from the left to the right, and then place the dimension down here at 4.0. And again, from the bottom to the top, and then place the dimension 2.0. There's my rectangle, fully defined and black again. Go ahead and delete that. This time we're going to come down to the 3-point corner rectangle. Now I can start out in space, or I can start right at the origin. So start at the origin, click, drag out. Notice I get a dimension as well as an angle. Click, and then drag to your second dimension, and click OK. This one here, if I dimension it, I can give it maybe a 4-inch dimension here, and I can click on one of the corners, and I can drag this rectangle around. And notice it moves around that center point. And if I add a dimension here to the other leg, keep in mind, look what's happening right there when I click on that. Notice it's not actually aligned with the line. So if I get close to the line, it will do that. If I move further away, it gives me a dimension here, or if I move up here, it gives me a dimension here. So be real careful with that, making sure that you're getting the right dimension. If you don't like that, hit escape and dimension from this line to this line. And that way you're always going to be tied in and the exact spacing between the 2 lines. 2.0. Once I have that, I can then grab one of the corners. I can rotate that around to any angle I'd like. In fact, if I'd like to use an angle, what I can do is I can add a center line from the origin, just extend it out a little bit, and I can add a new dimension from that center line to one of these bottom edges here and type in maybe 35. Right? That means everything's fully defined, and now the angle is set as well. When you're done with that, go ahead and window over everything and hit delete. Then come down here to the 3-point center rectangle. Again, start at the origin, drag out a line, drag out the other line. Again, place a couple dimensions. Maybe this one's 6.0, maybe this one 3.0, and then we want to determine whatever that angle is. So on the angle, again, I'm going to start from the origin, draw out a line, and make sure that line does snap to horizontal. In this case, it didn't because I just clicked a little too soon. So you want to make sure that I am going to snap that to horizontal. If you don't automatically add the relationship, click on the line and say Make Horizontal. Notice it'll have that little green check mark box directly below it. Then I can dimension from that line to one of these other lines and set the angle. Pretty handy. Okay, let's go ahead and delete those. Come back up here, and this time we're going to grab the parallelogram from the origin again, drag a line up, drag a line over, and there's my shape. I might want to add a horizontal line, and then I can dimension from that line to the bottom line and give this maybe a 15-degree angle. Then I'll dimension from the lower leg to the adjacent leg, make that 45. In this case here, I'll dimension from this line to this line here, make it 2.0. And then finally, I'll dimension from here to there. I can either dimension it that way, or what I can do is I can dimension the line on the top here, make it 4.0, and then we have a fully defined shape. Then later, if I want to change the angle, just double click it, type in a new angle, click OK, and everything automatically updates. Then keep in mind though, we're just using these tools to create rectangles or parallelograms. Really, it's just 4 line segments. So if at any point in time you'd like to actually change the way it's created or change the lines, you can go back and actually just delete some of the dimensions or delete some of the relationships. So notice we have a relationship here between these two lines, and I can click on either one of those little green boxes and hit delete. As soon as I do that, this line now is free to move around. So if I wanted to make this one a square corner, I could hold down Control, select those two adjacent lines, and make perpendicular. Now I've got a new shape that I created from a starting shape of a parallelogram. So a really quick way to utilize some of the built-in tools in SOLIDWORKS to create whatever you'd like as far as your final design.